All right, so let's start. What I've got here is I've got the website that you're supposed to be doing in this exercise. The exercise itself is a Word document that you can download from D2L. So it looks like this. Download that Word document. Now you see the reason why I've got this highlighted is because when I downloaded the Word document from D2L, you'll notice that that's a lot of HTML code, and you can just copy and paste that into a new document. And it pretty much works almost as it is. So that's what I've done here. If we look at this document, and I have opened it in Visual Studio Code. So in Visual Studio Code, I have two documents here. One document is just copied and pasted all of that stuff which is in that Word document, and then save it as a file called index.html in a folder that's called lab4. Then you have to do some editing of it to make it yours. All right. So first, there's a bunch of stuff there about Lisa Barnes. You need to change that. So so it's posted not by Lisa but by a student. Um, a student, a male student. So that has to be changed. Now this thing here is a hyperlink, so that can stay the way it is, doesn't need to be changed. But where do we need to do some changes? Okay, so the image, you don't have that image, right? I haven't given you that image. Now, how I got that image, the CNAQ logo, is just go to the college site and do a snip and copy it and paste it, save it as a CNAQ, and that's what I did here. So that's just a snip, and then saved into a folder called images, which is a subfolder of my lab4 folder, and then that is linked to here. So you're going to have to do that. That is not done for you. And then if you look here, this looks a little bit different than it looks in the document that you're copying from. So first place, this has been commented out. When I say commented out, it's taken a command and changed it to a comment. And so you'll remove those comment the little indicator of a comment. You remove those, and then the form will actually work, because before that it won't work as a form until you actually have that form thing. So, and that means you'll also have to have a page which is called action page dot php. Now this is PHP. It's not an HTML document. It's PHP. Now, when I did that, I actually put that action page PHP into a folder called form. And so I've got a folder called form, and I created this file. If we look at it, it's here. And you see it looks different in our Visual Studio code. It looks different than the HTML file. So when you save this, save it as a PHP file, save it with the extension as PHP. Now, look at it, and you'll say, oh, well, that looks just like HTML. In fact, yes, a PHP file looks just like HTML, except it's got some special commands in it, which we haven't added because in this course, we don't have to do PHP. But if you're going to be having action files coming out of forms, you would use PHP. All I've done in this file is I've put a heading, and I've styled it so it's kind of big. But this is what a PHP file looks like. It's really just like HTML, but it's PHP inside it. All right, so in our index file, we're going to have a form. This is different than anything that we've done before. And this is what gives the internet its power, really, is we're able to actually do some programming inside of our web file. Now, it's not the only programming. Those of you that decide to do the software strand, you'll be doing a lot of programming using JavaScript. And so you'll be putting JavaScript commands into your HTML files. So that's another way of doing programming. The beauty of the PHP programming is PHP works with SQL. SQL is a database. So, I mean, if you're going to have programming, it's a good idea if you've got somewhere to store your data besides just in the computer memory. And so that's why we're using SQL SQL drives a big databases that are used by business, and so that's a way that you can actually make your website do something that, well, if you wanted to have money, right, you'd want to record who all your customers were, how much they owed you, when did they pay you, all that kind of stuff. SQL would be really helpful for that. And so, yeah, so PHP integrates your HTML code with a SQL database, which we haven't got here. But I hope that you can see that if you look at this, at what this page is trying to do, that that would work with data, right? Well, the person gave their first name and their last name and their email address, submit. Well, what happens to that when they submit? Well, what should happen is that should then go and update a database table, and then that person's name and um, and email is now recorded, and we've got them so we can get back to them later. And that's exactly what's happening on the internet. And a lot of times, not we're not putting it. Yeah, well, we're doing this all the time, right? And all kinds of businesses have got details from us, so they're keeping databases, and so they're using this kind of technology that we're talking about today. All right, so let's actually have a look at how that kind of works. So we've got our website here. We've got a folder with an image, got a folder with a PHP form, and we've got a home with the index. Now, if I double click on it, that'll launch it into um, sorry, I'm trying to pull that window so we can see it, but what's happened is the zoom is sitting on top of it, and that always makes things not work the way. Now you'll notice that that this is pink, whereas the one in the Word document is not pink. And how is that, you might say? Well, one of the things that you had to do is you had a body tag at the start of your body, and you had this other thing here, and if we comment out the body tag like that and put in this other one, what we're doing is we're changing the background color to be this pink color. And so that's what's happened there. Got this nice pink color. Um, Back to where's that? Yeah. And now, if I make it a little bit bigger and we can put in a name, okay, so first name, and we can have an email address. When we do the submit, what should happen is that this data, each of those data fields would be assigned to a variable. This is where you need the PHP, and we haven't written the PHP, so don't worry about that. PHP could store those data to a variable, and then those variables would be transferred to the next page, which would then start up an SQL and store that into an SQL, write it to an SQL file. So we're not going to do that. But what we're going to do is when we do submit, we get a little note saying that, hey, you know what? That worked. Now, why did that work? If we go back and look at the code in Visual Studio, what's happened is we have a form, and the form has an action. And what that means is what's going to happen when the person presses the submit. Here's at the bottom is our submit. What's going to happen is that it's going to launch this page, which is called the action page. And this is kind of typical of what we do with PHP in our HTML. Now, as I said, PHP is not part of this course, but really, if you're going to have a form, you really have to have something like that. And so, so what happened is when we clicked on the submit in the in the file, and so that's the wrong one. It's this one, wasn't it? Yeah. When we clicked on the submit, uh, so we put in our details, and they would have those details. If we'd properly written this, those details would then be stored to a variable, and then those variables would be transferred to the next page, and then this page would have those variables and could use them probably to install into an SQL database. And that's basically the exercise. So just to sort of review, you've got this code. Almost all of it is given to you. What you have to do is you've got to make a few little changes. The changes there you'll see we're just changing out comments. So I just changed the comment here, put it around there. The other thing that you'll need to do is change anything things there that are about somebody else. Like there's a lot of Lisa Barnes stuff there. Take that out. Put your own name there. And then you'll have to make sure that you've got images in the right folder and that you link to it. And then you're going to have to uh, yeah, make sure that you've got a file called action page .php, and that you know where it is, and that you in the form tag that you actually point to it, and then so that document is pretty small. All it has to say is hello, or something, just so that you know that it worked. All right, so that is the exercise.